The rain had been falling for 3 hours straight. Elena Hartwell stood at the window of her Brooklyn studio, watching water stream down the glass in rivulets that caught the amber glow of streetlights below. Her fingers were stained with cadmium red and ultramarine blue, the remnants of another failed attempt to capture what she felt but couldn't name. Behind her, the canvas mocked her with its incompleteness. A woman's face half-finished. The eyes were there, dark and knowing, but the mouth remained unformed. Elena had been trying to paint her mother for 3 years now, ever since the funeral, and every time the brush touched canvas, something inside her simply stopped. She turned away from the window. The studio was small, barely 400 square feet, but it was hers. The rent was late again. 2 months now. Mrs. Chen downstairs had been patient, kinder than Elena deserved, but patience had limits. Everything had limits. Her phone buzzed. Another email from the hospital billing department. Another reminder of the $127,000 she still owed. The number had been burned into her brain for so long it no longer felt real. Just numbers. Just weight she carried everywhere, invisible but crushing. Elena's father had fought for 18 months. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. No insurance adequate enough to cover the experimental treatments they'd tried in desperation. He died anyway on a Tuesday morning in March, holding her hand and apologizing for the debt he was leaving behind. "You don't owe anyone anything," he'd whispered. "Promise me you'll live, Elena. Not just exist, live." She'd promised, but 3 years later, she was still learning the difference. The invitation sat on her desk, half buried under sketches and coffee-stained napkins. The charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum. She'd been hired to do live portrait sketches, quick charcoal drawings for donors who wanted to feel bohemian for an evening. $500 for 4 hours of work. She needed it, needed every dollar she could scrape together. Elena picked up the invitation, studying the embossed lettering. The Cross Foundation annual benefit. She'd heard of them, everyone had. One of the largest philanthropic organizations in New York, focused on cancer research and treatment accessibility. The irony wasn't lost on her. She closed her eyes, breathed, opened them again. Tomorrow night, she could do this. She'd smile, sketch wealthy strangers, collect her check, and come home. Simple, contained, safe. The rain continued to fall, washing the city clean, and Elena returned to her unfinished painting brush in hand, trying once more to give her mother a voice. Damien Cross didn't sleep anymore. Not really. He existed in a state of controlled exhaustion, moving through meetings and decisions with the mechanical precision of someone who'd forgotten how to feel tired. The penthouse was dark except for the blue glow of his laptop screen, spreadsheets, and projections dancing before eyes that had long since stopped seeing them clearly. 3 a.m., the city sprawled below a constellation of lights that never truly dimmed. He'd bought this place for the view, 47th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of real estate that appeared in architecture magazines. But he rarely looked at it anymore. The view was just there, like everything else, present but meaningless. His phone sat face down on the desk. He knew what was there without looking. 17 missed calls from his assistant, 8 from his board members, 3 from his lawyer Marcus Reed, 1 from the hospital. That last one he'd listened to. Dr. Patel's voice, carefully neutral. "Mr. Cross, we need to discuss Lily's treatment options. The current protocol isn't responding as we'd hoped. Please call me back at your earliest convenience." Earliest convenience. As if there was anything convenient about watching your sister die by inches. Damien stood, walked to the window. Manhattan glittered beneath him, indifferent and eternal. He pressed his palm against the glass. Cold, real. Sometimes he needed that physical sensation to remind him he was still here, still breathing, still responsible for all of this. Lily was 24. She'd been diagnosed 2 years ago, right after finishing her master's degree in environmental science. Ovarian cancer, stage 3, aggressive. She'd been fighting ever since, and Damien had been beside her for every infusion, every scan, every moment of hope, and subsequent devastation. She was the only family he had left. Their parents had died in a car accident when Damien was 16 and Lily was 6. He'd raised her, put himself through college while making sure she had everything she needed, built his company from nothing while coaching her soccer team and attending parent-teacher conferences. She was his purpose, his reason, the only thing that had ever mattered more than success. And now she was slipping away, and all his money, all his power, all his carefully constructed empire couldn't stop it. the trust fund. He'd almost forgotten. His grandfather's will had been specific. Damien would inherit full control of the Cross Foundation, $300 million in assets on his 35th birthday, provided he demonstrated stability and commitment to family values. Translation provided he was married. His birthday was in 6 months. The board was already circling. Marcus had made it clear they needed to see engagement, a wedding, something concrete. Without the foundation, they'd lose the leverage they needed to negotiate with insurance companies, hospitals, research facilities. Without the foundation, dozens of initiatives would collapse. Programs Lily had helped design. Her legacy. Damien turned away from the window. On his desk, buried under financial reports, was his sketchbook. He never showed it to anyone. Inside were drawings, crude, unpracticed, but honest. His way of processing what he couldn't say out loud. Most of the recent pages were filled with the same face. A woman he'd seen once, 3 years ago, at a small gallery in Chelsea. She'd been standing in front of her own painting, unaware she was being watched, and the expression on her face had arrested him completely. Not sadness exactly, something deeper, a kind of beautiful devastation. He'd bought 2 of her paintings that night anonymously. And when he'd learned about her father's medical debt, he'd done what he always did when he saw a problem he could fix. He'd fixed it, quietly. No credit, no strings, just 70% of the debt paid through an intermediary. He'd never told her, never intended to. Some things weren't about gratitude or recognition. Some things were just about doing what was right. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Need final answer on the engagement strategy. Board meeting Monday. Time's up. Damien looked at the sketchbook again. At the woman's face, half-remembered, haunting. He had an idea. Reckless, probably stupid, but an idea nonetheless. He picked up his phone and started typing. The Metropolitan Museum at night was a different animal entirely. Elena arrived through the staff entrance carrying her portable easel and supply case, trying not to feel small among the soaring ceilings and marble columns. The gala was already in full swing, classical music drifting through the halls, the low murmur of expensive conversations, the clink of champagne glasses that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She'd worn her only good dress, black simple, bought secondhand from a consignment shop in Park Slope. It fit well enough. She'd learned to move through these spaces, not quite belonging, but not entirely out of place either. The Invisible Woman. The artist hired to add ambiance. Her station was set up in the American wing, near the Tiffany glass. Good lighting, foot traffic. She arranged her charcoals and pastels, clipped fresh paper to her easel, and waited. The guests were exactly what she'd expected. Older couples, most of them. Tech executives trying to look cultured. Real estate developers trying to look charitable. A few younger faces, probably trust fund beneficiaries, fulfilling their family obligations. They all had that same quality, a comfort with space and attention, as if the world had been designed specifically for their convenience. Elena sketched, automatically falling into the rhythm. 5-minute portraits. Quick, flattering, just realistic enough to be recognizable. She smiled at the right moments, thanked them for their patience, and handed over drawings that they'd probably forget about by morning. 2 hours passed. Her hand was starting to cram when she felt it, that particular quality of attention that made the space between her shoulder blades prickle. Someone was watching her. She looked up. He was standing about 15 feet away, half hidden in the shadow of a sculpture. Tall, dark suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. But it was his face that stopped her mid-breath. Strong features, dark hair, slightly too long, eyes that seemed to see through rather than at her. He wasn't looking at her the way the other guests had. He was looking at her the way she looked at paintings, studying, trying to understand. Their eyes met, held. Elena felt something shift in her chest, a recognition without context. Then he was moving toward her, and she realized with a start that she knew who this was. Damien Cross. She'd seen his photo in the program. The foundation's founder, the evening's host. "You're very talented," he said. His voice was low, controlled, but there was something underneath it. Exhaustion, maybe, or loneliness. "May I?" He gestured to the stool in front of her easel. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. He sat. Up close, she could see the details the photograph had missed. The faint scar above his left eyebrow. The shadows under his eyes that expensive clothing couldn't hide, the way his jaw was set as if he were constantly bracing for impact. "What would you like?" she asked, finding her professional voice. "Profile straight on." "Whatever you see," he said. "I trust your judgment." His eyes hadn't left hers. Elena felt exposed as if he could see past the careful walls she'd built. She looked down at her blank paper, picked up her charcoal, and began. For 5 minutes, neither of them spoke. The gala continued around them, laughter and music and the performance of philanthropy. But in this small circle of space, there was only the scratch of charcoal on paper and the weight of mutual observation. Elena drew what she saw, not the polished exterior, but the truth underneath. The tiredness, the burden, the way his shoulders carried weight that wasn't physical. She drew his eyes' last dark and complicated windows into rooms he'd locked long ago. When she finished, she turned the easel around. Damien looked at his portrait for a long moment. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe? Or recognition? "You see too much," he said quietly. "I only draw what's there. That's what I'm afraid of." Before Elena could respond, the moment shattered. Flash of cameras, voices calling his name. A crowd had gathered, paparazzi somehow infiltrating the private event, security scrambling to contain them. "Mr. Cross, Mr. Cross, is it true you're engaged? Who's your fiancée? When's the wedding?" Damien stood abruptly, his jaw tightened. Elena saw the calculation in his eyes, the rapid assessment of a man used to managing crises. He looked at her, really looked at her, and in that split second, she saw him make a decision. "I'm sorry," he murmured. Then he pulled her to her feet, cupped her face in both hands, and kissed her. The world stopped. His lips were warm, firm, certain. The kiss was brief but thorough, the kind of kiss that claimed space and attention. Camera flashes exploded around them like lightning. Elena's hands had come up instinctively to his chest, whether to push him away or pull him closer, she didn't know. When he released her, his hands lingering for just a moment against her jaw, she saw the apology in his eyes, and something else. A question. The paparazzi were going insane. "That's her. That's his fiancée. What's your name, miss? How long have you two been together?" Security finally arrived, creating a barrier between them and the cameras. Damien kept his hand on Elena's elbow, guiding her quickly through the crowd, down a staff corridor, away from the chaos. They ended up in a private office, dark wood leather chairs, the smell of old money. He closed the door. Silence rushed in. "I am so sorry," he said, immediately running a hand through his hair. "That was completely inappropriate. I panicked and He stopped, breathed. "I'm sorry, please let me explain." Elena was still processing. Her lips still tingled. Her heart was racing. "You just kissed me in front of half of New York society." "I know, the photos are already online, probably." "Yes. Everyone thinks we're engaged." "Most likely." Elena looked at him, really looked at him, saw the desperation underneath the control. "Why?" Damien sank into one of the leather chairs. For a moment, he looked every one of his 34 years and then some. "It's complicated." "I have time." He studied her face, seeming to debate with himself. Then slowly he began to talk. He told her about Lily, about the cancer, about the trust fund and the board and the impossible situation he'd found himself in. He spoke without self-pity, just facts, but Elena heard what he didn't say. The fear, the exhaustion, the love that was slowly crushing him under its weight. When he finished, silence settled between them again. "I know how this sounds," Damien said quietly. "Rich man with rich people problems. But Lily," his voice caught, he cleared his throat. "The foundation funds the research facility where she's being treated. If we lose that leverage, if the board decides I'm not stable enough to run things properly, we lose access to experimental treatments. We lose everything." Elena thought about her father, about hospital rooms and medical bills and the particular way hope dies by inches. "What do you need?" she asked. Damien looked up, surprise clear on his face. I need someone to pretend to be my fiancé, just for 6 months, until my birthday, until the trust transfers fully. After that, a quiet breakup, no drama. I would pay you, of course. Whatever amount." $500,000, Elena said. "Done, ma'am." She blinked. That was just a number. I didn't actually. It's fair, more than fair considering what I'm asking. He leaned forward. But I need you to understand what this means. Media attention, scrutiny. Your life won't be your own for those 6 months. People will dig into your past, your family, everything. It won't be easy. Elena thought about the $127,000 still hanging over her head, about the paintings she couldn't finish, about the life she'd been frozen in for 3 years, about her father's last words. Promise me you'll live. I have one condition, she said. Name it. I meet your sister first, before I agree to anything. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to lie to everyone, including her, I need to know why it matters. I need to see for myself. Something shifted in Damien's expression. Respect maybe, or relief. Tomorrow, he said, I'll pick you up at noon. We'll go see her together. He pulled out his phone, opened a new contact entry, and handed it to her. Elena entered her number, her address, then gave it back. Elena, he said, testing her name. Elena Hartwell. Damien Cross. They shook hands, formal, strange, the beginning of something neither of them fully understood yet. The photos will be everywhere by morning, Damien said. My team will reach out about a press strategy. We'll need to coordinate our story, how we met, how long we've been dating, all the details that make this believable. Okay, you can still back out. This offer expires the moment you leave this room, but until then, you're free to walk away. No judgment, no consequences. Elena looked at him, at this man who'd kissed her in desperation and was now giving her every opportunity to run. She thought about the canvas waiting in her studio unfinished, about the voice she'd been trying so hard to give her mother, about the weight of debt and grief and 3 years of barely breathing. I'll see you tomorrow at noon, she said. Relief flooded Damien's face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We haven't signed anything. Still, thank you. He walked her out through a private exit, away from the gala, away from the cameras. A car was waiting, black, sleek, anonymous. Damien opened the door for her himself. Elena, he said as she was about to get in. She turned back. That drawing you did. Of me. May I keep it? She'd almost forgotten. The portrait was still clipped to her easel, probably abandoned in all the chaos. It's yours. I drew it for you. No, he said quietly. I meant, may I actually keep it? Not just take it because I paid for it, but keep it because it matters. Elena understood the difference. Yes, she said. You can keep it. She got into the car. As it pulled away from the museum, she looked back through the rear window. Damien was still standing there, silhouetted against the grand entrance, a man carrying the weight of empires and breaking hearts. Her phone buzzed. Text messages, flooding in friends' acquaintances, people she hadn't heard from in years. All sending the same thing, photos of the kiss. Her face caught in surprise and something else. His face determined and desperate and almost tender. The headlines were already writing themselves. Billionaire's mystery fiancé, who is Elena Hartwell Cross Foundation, heirs surprise engagement. Elena turned off her phone, watched the city stream past outside the window. In 12 hours, her life had been upended. In 12 hours, everything had changed. She touched her lips, still feeling the phantom pressure of his kiss. What had she just agreed to? The law offices of Reed & Associates occupied 3 floors of a steel and glass tower in Midtown. Damien arrived at 8 a.m. earlier than strictly necessary, but sleep had remained elusive and waiting felt worse than acting. Marcus Reed was already in his office. He always was. In the 15 years Damien had known him, he'd never seen Marcus arrive or leave. The man simply existed within these walls, perpetually available, perpetually prepared. I saw the photos, Marcus said without preamble. He was standing at his window, coffee in hand, looking down at the street below. Quite the performance. It wasn't planned. Obviously. Marcus turned. He was in his 50s, silver-haired, distinguished in that way expensive lawyers learn to cultivate. But you've certainly complicated things. Who is she? Her name is Elena Hartwell. She's an artist. I know who she is. I had her background run at 6 a.m. Marcus picked up a folder from his desk. Elena Marie Hartwell, 28, born in Connecticut, moved to New York for art school. Father was James Hartwell, deceased 3 years ago, pancreatic cancer. Mother died when Elena was 7. No siblings, no criminal record, No obvious red flags. He paused. Except for the debt. Damien kept his expression neutral. What debt? Medical debt from her father's treatment. Substantial. Though interestingly, about 70% of it was paid off anonymously 3 years ago. Marcus's eyes sharpened. Any idea who might have done that? No idea. Hmm. Marcus didn't look convinced. So you're telling me this woman, an artist struggling to make rent, carrying 6 figures in debt, just happened to be at the gala last night, just happened to be the one you chose to kiss when the cameras showed up and just happened to agree to pretend to be your fiancée? I asked. She said yes. The details are our business. Everything is my business when I'm your lawyer, Damien. Marcus set down the folder. But fine. Let's assume this arrangement is legitimate. We need to make it ironclad. Prenup, NDA, clear terms of engagement, and dissolution. This can't blow up in our faces. I'll handle it. You'll handle it, Marcus repeated, with the same level of handling you applied last night. Damien met his lawyer's eyes. There was something in Marcus's expression he couldn't quite read. Concern, certainly. But something else underneath. Something that felt almost like wariness, Marcus, Damien said slowly. Is there a problem? Besides the fact that you've thrust yourself and your fake fiancé into the spotlight with zero preparation. Besides the fact that the board is going to smell blood in the water. Besides the fact that this entire scheme is one misstep away from destroying everything we've built. Marcus picked up his coffee. No problem at all. There was an edge to his voice that Damien had never heard before. Sharp, almost hostile. If you have concerns about Elena, just say it. I don't have concerns about Elena. Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. I have concerns about you. You're not thinking clearly. You're exhausted, you're desperate, and you're making decisions that could have serious consequences. Lily is dying. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus's expression softened. I know, and I'm sorry, you know I am, but throwing yourself into a fake engagement with this stranger isn't going to save her. No, Damien agreed. But securing the foundation might give her a few more months, a few more chances, and I'll take every single one I can get. Silence. Fine, Marcus said eventually. I'll draw up the contracts. But Damien, be careful. You're playing with fire, and I don't think you realize how quickly you could get burned. Damien left the office with Marcus's warning ringing in his ears. But he had more immediate concerns. In 4 hours, he was picking up Elena. In 4 hours, she was going to meet Lily. He wasn't sure which of them he was more nervous for. Elena spent the morning painting, not the portrait of her mother. She couldn't face that today. Instead, she pulled out a fresh canvas and let her hands work without thinking. Color and movement and emotion. Abstract, chaotic, the physical manifestation of everything she was feeling. By 11:30, the canvas was covered in crimson and gold and deep bruised purple. It looked like a storm, like an ending, like a beginning. She stepped back, breathing hard. Paint streaked her arms, her old t-shirt, probably her face. The studio was a mess. She was a mess, perfect. She showered quickly, changed into jeans and a simple sweater, casual enough for a hospital visit, nice enough not to embarrass herself. Her phone had been off since last night. She turned it on now. 347 notifications. Elena stared at the number, felt something between laughter and panic bubble up in her throat. She'd gone viral, actually properly viral. The photos from the gala were everywhere, news sites, social media, gossip blogs. Everyone wanted to know who she was, how she'd captured the attention of one of New York's most eligible bachelors, whether the ring was from Tiffany or Cartier. There was no ring, but details didn't seem to matter. Someone had found her Instagram. Her follower count had exploded from 300 to 60,000 overnight. People she'd never met were commenting on years-old photos, dissecting her style, her taste, her worthiness. She's pretty, but basic. How did she land? Damien Cross Gold. Digger alert. Actually, she seems really talented. Check out her art. Bet she's pregnant. Elena's hands shook. She set down the phone. Breathed. This was only the beginning. This was what she'd signed up for. Promise me you'll live. A knock at her door. Noon, exactly. When Elena opened it, Damien was standing in her narrow hallway looking completely out of place in his expensive suit and designer watch. He seemed to realize it too, glancing around at the peeling paint and flickering fluorescent light with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Hi," she said. "Hi." He held up a coffee cup. "I didn't know how you'd take it, so I got it black. There's sugar and cream in the car if you need it." Such a small gesture. Such ordinary thoughtfulness. Elena felt something in her chest soften dangerously. "Black is fine. Thank you." They walked to the car in silence. Same black sedan from last night, same driver who'd said nothing and seen everything. Once inside, Damien handed her a tablet. "This is the contract," he said. "My lawyer drew it up this morning. Take your time reading it. Nothing gets signed until you're comfortable." Elena scrolled through the document. It was thorough, terrifyingly thorough. Every detail of their arrangement spelled out in precise legal language. The timeline, the payment structure, the confidentiality clauses, the terms of dissolution, and at the bottom, prepared by Marcus Reed, Reed and Associates. Elena's finger froze on the screen. Marcus Reed, she knew that name. Knew it the way you know the name of someone who'd destroyed your family. "Something wrong?" Damien asked. Elena looked up. His expression was open, concerned. He didn't know. Of course he didn't know. Why would he? She thought about her father, about the investment scheme that had wiped out their savings when she was in high school, about the smooth-talking lawyer who'd convinced her father it was a sure thing, who'd disappeared when everything collapsed, who'd left them with nothing. Marcus Reed, the same Marcus Reed who was apparently Damien's lawyer. His trusted advisor, his friend probably. "Elena." Damien's hand was on her arm. "What is it?" She had two choices. Tell him now before anything was signed, before this went any further, or stay silent. Take the money, use this opportunity to finally get justice for her father. Promise me you'll live. But her father had also taught her about integrity, about honesty, about doing the right thing even when it hurt. "I need to tell you something," Elena said quietly, "about your lawyer." Damien's expression shifted, became very still. "I'm listening." "Marcus Reed." She stopped, started again. 15 years ago, when I was 13, my father invested our savings in a development project. Marcus Reed was the lawyer who handled the contracts. He promised it was legitimate, that we'd make a good return. Instead, the whole thing was a scam. We lost everything. My father tried to get the money back, tried to sue, but Reed had covered his tracks perfectly. We couldn't prove anything. The car was silent except for the low hum of the engine. "You're certain it was him?" Damien asked finally. "I'm certain. And you're telling me this now because I don't want to lie to you, not about this." Elena met his eyes. "If I take your money, if I help you with this, whatever this is, I need you to know there's history there, complicated history, and I don't know if I can pretend it doesn't exist." Damien looked at her for a long moment. Then he leaned forward. "Driver, pull over." The car slid smoothly to the curb. Damien turned to face Elena fully. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "That took courage. You're not angry." "Why would I be angry? You're being honest. He stopped. "That's more than most people would do." "What about the contract? Your lawyer is just that, my lawyer, not my friend, not someone whose character I'd vouch for apparently." Damien's jaw tightened. "I'll look into what you told me quietly. And in the meantime, we can have another firm draw up the contract if that makes you more comfortable." Elena shook her head. "That's not necessary. I needed you to know." "Noted." He held out his hand. "Still want to meet my sister. No obligation, no pressure. Just I'd like you to meet her, if you're willing." Elena looked at his outstretched hand, at this man who'd kissed her in desperation, who'd offered her an escape, and then given her every reason to run, who was somehow impossibly treating her like an equal partner in this absurd arrangement. She took his hand. "Let's go meet Lily." The car pulled back into traffic, carrying them toward the hospital, toward truths neither of them was quite ready for. And in a midtown office tower, Marcus Reed stood at his window watching the street below and smiled. Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center rose like a monument to hope and desperation on the Upper East Side. Elena had been inside once before 3 years ago, holding her father's hand as they waited for test results that would change everything. The smell hit her first. Antiseptic and artificial flowers and something underneath, fear maybe, or grief. Wearing a medical mask, her chest tightened. Damien's hand found hers. Not romantic, not performative, just steadying. "You okay, Wem?" he asked quietly. "No," Elena said, "but I will be." They took the elevator to the 7th floor. Oncology. The halls were painted in soft colors meant to be calming, sage green and muted coral, but Elena knew better. No amount of interior design could soften what happened here. Damien stopped outside room 712. His hand was still holding hers and she felt the tremor in his fingers. This man who commanded boardrooms and moved millions with a signature was shaking. "She doesn't know," he said, "about us, about the arrangement. She thinks—" He stopped. "I told her I'd been seeing someone, that it was new but serious. She's going to be happy and it's going to kill me because it's not real." "It's real enough," Elena said. "Your feelings for her are real. Your need to protect her is real. The rest is just details." Damien looked at her with something like wonder. "You're extraordinary. You know that?" Before Elena could respond, a voice called from inside the room. "Damien, is that you lurking in the hallway? Get in here already." The voice was young, bright, laced with affectionate exasperation. Lily's voice. Damien opened the door. The room was smaller than Elena expected, crowded with medical equipment and flowers. Too many flowers, as if people thought beauty could outweigh mortality. But none of that mattered because Lily herself was sitting up in bed and she was radiant. Not healthy. Elena could see the illness in the thinness of her arms, the pallor beneath her skin, the IV line snaking into her hand. But radiant nonetheless. Dark hair cut short in a pixie cut that highlighted enormous hazel eyes. A smile that could light cities. "Oh my God," Lily said, her gaze landing on Elena. "You brought her. You actually brought her." She looked at her brother. "I didn't think you'd have the guts." "Lily, this is Elena. Elena, my sister Lily." "The famous Elena." Lily's grin widened. "Come here, let me look at you properly." Elena approached the bed suddenly shy. Lily studied her with the frank curiosity of someone who'd stopped caring about social niceties. Then she took Elena's hand in both of hers. "You're real," Lily said softly. "I was half convinced he'd made you up. Some stress-induced hallucination brought on by too much coffee and not enough sleep." "I'm real," Elena confirmed, "and you're actually dating my disaster of a brother." "I am." "Why?" The question was asked with humor, but Elena heard the serious note underneath. This was a test. Lily was protecting Damien in her own way. Elena glanced at Damien, who was watching them both with barely concealed anxiety. Then she looked back at Lily and made a choice. Not the truth she couldn't give, that not yet, but not a lie either. "Because he kissed me in front of half of New York," Elena said. "And because when he looks at you, I see someone who knows how to love completely. And I guess I wanted to know what that would feel like." Silence. Then Lily laughed, a real laugh, delighted and surprised. "Okay," she said. "Okay, I like you. You can stay." Damien exhaled. Elena realized he'd been holding his breath. "Don't hover, Damien," Lily said, waving her brother toward the chair. "Sit, both of you, and tell me everything. How did you meet? When did this start? I want details." They'd prepared for this. In the car, Damien had sketched out a story they'd met at a gallery, opening 6 months ago. Stayed in touch. Started dating, casually realized it was something more. Simple. Believable. But sitting here facing Lily's genuine happiness, Elena found herself embellishing. Adding small details that felt true even if they weren't. The way Damien had looked at her paintings, how he'd sent her coffee after a late night working, the slow build of something neither of them had expected. Lily listened, asking questions, laughing at the right moments. And slowly Elena understood. This wasn't about the truth of their relationship. This was about giving Lily something to focus on besides her own body's betrayal. This was about hope. "Can I see the ring?" Lily asked eventually. Elena froze. Of course. The engagement. They'd announced it to the world but hadn't actually— "It's being sized," Damien said smoothly. "Should be ready next week." "Promise you'll show me as soon as you get it." "Promise." Lily's eyes started to droop. The animation that had sustained her was fading, exhaustion creeping back in. Damien noticed immediately. "We should go," he said gently. "Let you rest." "No, stay. Just a few more minutes." Lily reached out and Elena found herself taking her hand again. "Elena, can I tell you something? Something I haven't even told Damien." Elena glanced at Damien, who nodded slowly. "Of course," Elena said. "I'm scared," Lily whispered, "all the time. But when I saw the photos of you two last night, when I saw him actually smiling, really smiling, not the fake version he does for everyone else, I felt something I haven't felt in a long time. I felt like maybe things could be okay. Like maybe he'd be okay even if I'm not." Elena's throat closed. Damien had turned away, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "You're going to be okay," Elena said. "We don't know that. The doctors don't know that." Lily squeezed her hand. "But promise me something. Promise me you'll take care of him. He's spent so long taking care of everyone else. He needs someone to take care of him for once." "Lily," Damien's voice was rough. "Promise me, Elena." Elena looked at this girl, this impossibly brave, impossibly kind girl, and felt something crack open in her chest. "I promise," Lily smiled, closed her eyes. "Good. Now you can go. I'm going to sleep and I'm going to dream about your wedding. Make it beautiful, okay? Lots of flowers and cake. Definitely cake." They left quietly. In the hallway, Damien walked straight to the window at the end of the corridor and pressed his forehead against the glass. His shoulders were shaking. Elena went to him, didn't touch him, didn't speak, just stood beside him while he fought for control. "I can't lose her," he said finally. "I can't. She's all I have." "I know. Do you—" He turned and his eyes were devastated. "Do you know what it's like to watch someone you love disappear piece by piece, to know that all your money, all your power, all your pathetic attempts at control mean absolutely nothing?" "Yes," Elena said quietly. "I do." Damien stared at her, remembered. "Your father. 18 months, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I watched him fight and suffer and hope and break. So yes, Damien, I know exactly what it's like." Something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, the terrible intimacy of shared grief. "I'm sorry," he said. "Me too." They stood there for a long moment, two people who'd been strangers 3 days ago and were now bound by lies and truth in equal measure. "Come on," Elena said eventually. "Let's get out of here. I can't breathe in hospitals." "Where do you want to go?" "Anywhere. Everywhere. Just not here." They drove through the city without direction. Damien had told his driver to just drive, no destination, no plan. They sat in the back seat, not touching, watching New York stream past the windows. "The contract," Damien said eventually. "You never signed it." "I know." "Do you want to—" "Oh." Elena thought about Lily's smile, about her promise, about the way Damien's hand had shaken when he had opened his sister's door. "Yes," she said, "but I have some revisions." "What kind of revisions?" "I don't want the money paid out all at once. I want it in installments, monthly, like a salary." Damien frowned. "Why?" "Because if I take $500,000 in one payment, I'll feel like I've been bought. If I take it monthly, I can pretend I'm working, earning it. Does that make sense?" "Yes," he said slowly. "It does. And I want to use part of it to help other families, people dealing with medical debt. I don't want this money to just be about me." "Elena, that's my condition. Take it or leave it." Damien looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and hit send. "Done," he said. "I just emailed my accountant. Monthly payments starting immediately with a charitable fund set up in your name. You'll have full control over who it helps and how much." Just like that. Just like that. He put his phone up. "Anything else?" "Actually, yes." Elena turned to face him fully. "If we're going to do this, if I'm going to live in your penthouse and pretend to be your fiancé and let the world think we're in love, then we need rules, boundaries." "I'm listening." "No kissing unless absolutely necessary for the cameras. No touching unless it's public. And definitely no," she gestured vaguely, "nothing physical. This is business. Professional." "Agreed. And we need to actually know each other. Basic things. Favorite color, coffee order, childhood memories. If we're supposed to be in love, we need to be able to fake it convincingly. How do we do that? Questions, Elena said. We ask each other questions, real ones, and we answer honestly. A getting to know you interrogation. Exactly. Damien smiled, actually smiled the real thing Lily had talked about. Okay, you go first. Elena thought for a moment. What's your earliest memory? My mother singing in the kitchen. She had a terrible voice, but she loved show tunes. She'd make pancakes on Sunday mornings and sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow completely off key. His expression softened. I was maybe 4. Lily wasn't born yet. It was just the 3 of us, mom, dad, and me, and everything felt safe. Do you remember the lyrics, every word? They were quiet for a moment. Then Damien said, my turn. What's the last thing your father said to you? Elena's breath caught. That's not fair. You said honest questions. He said, she stopped, started again. He said, promise me you'll live, not just exist, live. And have you been living? No, Elena admitted. Not really. I've been frozen, stuck, treading water in the same place for 3 years. Why? Because if I move forward, it means accepting he's gone. And I'm not ready for that. Damien reached across the seat and took her hand. Not romantic, not performative, just human connection. I understand, he said. I know you do. The car continued to drive. The city continued to move. And somewhere between one question and the next, the space between them became less like a contract and more like a lifeline. Moving into the penthouse took 3 hours and 1 borrowed suitcase. Elena didn't have much clothes, art supplies, a few books, the half-finished portrait of her mother. Everything else she left behind, telling Mrs. Chen she'd be gone for 6 months but would continue paying rent. The studio was her anchor. She needed to know it would be there when this was over. Damien's penthouse was exactly what she'd expected, and nothing like what she'd imagined. Vast, certainly, floor-to-ceiling windows with views that made her dizzy, but also lived in. Books scattered on tables, a coffee cup left on the counter, sketch pads filled with rough drawings, hidden in drawers she opened by accident. Guest room is down that hall, Damien said, pointing. Ensuite bathroom. Closet's probably bigger than your entire studio. Make yourself at home. Where's your room? Other side of the penthouse, you'll have privacy. Elena nodded. Good. Boundaries. Professional. But that night, lying in a bed that felt too large and too soft, staring at a ceiling too high and too dark, she couldn't sleep. Every sound was unfamiliar. Every shadow was strange. She got up at 2 a.m., wandering through the silent penthouse in bare feet and borrowed pajamas. She found Damien in the kitchen, sitting at the counter with his laptop open and a bottle of whiskey at his elbow. Can't sleep either, she asked. He looked up unsurprised. Apparently not. What are you working on? Research, medical trials, experimental treatments. He rubbed his eyes. There's a new immunotherapy protocol starting in Germany. Lily's not a candidate for the current trials, but if I can get her into the next phase, he stopped. I'm grasping at straws. No, Elena said. You're fighting. That's different. She poured herself a glass of water, leaned against the counter across from him. Outside the windows, the city glittered like a fallen constellation. Can I tell you something? Damien said quietly. Yes. I'm terrified all the time. I wake up terrified. I go to sleep terrified. I exist in a constant state of waiting for the worst to happen. I know. Me too. Even now, 3 years later. Especially now. Elena traced her finger along the marble countertop. The fear doesn't go away. You just learn to function around it, like living with chronic pain. It becomes part of you. That's bleak. It's honest. Damien closed his laptop, poured them each a small measure of whiskey. To honesty, then. To honesty. They drank in comfortable silence. The clock ticked past 3 a.m., 4 a.m., neither of them moved to leave. Tell me about your art, Damien said eventually. Why painting? Because I don't have words for what I feel. Never have. But I can paint it. I can take all the mess inside me and make it out into something beautiful, or at least something visible. Can I see your work, the real stuff, not just the commissioned portraits? Elena hesitated. Her real work was personal, vulnerable, But they'd promised honesty. Tomorrow, she said. I'll show you tomorrow. I'll hold you to that. Another silence. Then, Damien, why did you really pay off my father's medical debt? He went very still. How did you know? Your lawyer's background check. You said he ran mine at 6 a.m. He would have found the anonymous payment. And Marcus mentioned it, said it was interesting that 70% had been paid off by someone. Then you had no reaction when I mentioned the debt. You already knew about it. Damien set down his glass. You're observant. You're avoiding the question. 3 years ago, I went to a gallery in Chelsea. Small place, terrible location. There was an exhibition, emerging artists, all unknowns. Most of it was forgettable. But then I saw your paintings. He stood, walked to the window, stared out at the city. There were three of them. One was your father. I knew without asking, the love in every brushstroke was unmistakable. One was abstract, all rage and grief and beauty, and one was a self-portrait. You were looking at the viewer with this expression that it broke me. It broke me because I recognized it. That particular quality of grief that comes from watching someone you love die slowly. Elena couldn't breathe. I bought two of them, had them delivered anonymously because I didn't want to make it weird. And then I asked about the artist. The gallery owner told me your father was sick, that you were struggling, that you'd probably have to quit art entirely to work full-time just to manage the medical bills. He turned back to face her. So I had my assistant research the debt, and I paid what I could without raising red flags. It wasn't altruism, Elena. It was selfishness. I needed you to keep painting. I needed to know that someone out there was creating beauty out of pain, because if you could do it, maybe I could figure out how to do it too. Elena stood there processing. All this time, she'd thought the anonymous payment was a miracle, a statistical anomaly, a glitch in the hospital's billing system that she'd been too afraid to question. But it had been him. Why didn't you tell me, she whispered. Because it wasn't about gratitude, it was about preservation, keeping something beautiful in the world. Elena walked over to where he stood. They were inches apart now, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough to feel the heat of him. Thank you, she said. You don't have to. Thank you, Damien, for seeing me, for my father, for everything. Something shifted in his expression, softened and intensified at once. His hand came up, almost touching her face, then dropped. We should sleep, he said roughly. It's late. Yes. Elena agreed, even though neither of them moved. They stood there at the window, watching the city wake up as the space between them hummed with everything they weren't saying. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of choreographed intimacy. There were photo ops, carefully staged, candid moments where they held hands walking through Central Park, shared coffee at outdoor cafes, laughed at private jokes that didn't actually exist. Damien's publicist was meticulous, crafting their narrative with the precision of a general planning a campaign. There were events, gallery openings, and charity dinners and benefits where Elena learned to smile until her face hurt to make small talk with people who looked through her, to wear dresses that cost more than her monthly rent and feel like an imposter in everyone. But there were also quiet moments, real moments. Damien working late in his office while Elena painted in the sunroom he'd converted into a studio for her. Neither of them speaking, but the comfortable silence of shared space. Cooking dinner together, Elena teaching him how to make her father's pasta carbonara, Damien showing her his mother's recipe for Sunday pancakes. Late nights talking on the couch or the roof or anywhere they happened to find each other when sleep wouldn't come. Visiting Lily together 3 times a week, watching old movies on her hospital TV and pretending everything was normal. Elena was surprised by how easy it was, how natural, how the lines between performance and reality kept blurring until she couldn't tell which was which anymore. She was also surprised by Marcus Reed. He was ever present at meetings, at events, hovering at Damien's elbow with advice and contracts, and barely concealed hostility whenever he looked at Elena. She tried to stay out of his way, but Marcus seemed determined to be unavoidable. You're doing well, he said to her once at a foundation gala. Damien had stepped away to take a call, playing your part convincingly. I'm not playing, Elena said evenly. Of course you are. We all are. The question is whether you know your lines well enough not to mess up Damien's future. His future is secure. Was it? Marcus's smile was sharp. Or is it hanging by a thread being held by a broke artist with more debt than prospects? That debt was paid off, Elena said, or most of it, by someone who believed I was worth the investment. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Careful, Miss Hartwell. Gratitude can be a dangerous foundation for a relationship. Good thing this isn't based on gratitude, then. She walked away before he could respond, her heart pounding. But she'd made an enemy, and she knew it. That night, she couldn't sleep. She got up, wandered to Damien's office, and found him exactly where she expected, bent over his laptop, surrounded by medical journals and research papers. "You're going to burn out," she said from the doorway. "Can't burn out if you're already ash. That's bleak. You said honesty was important." Elena walked into the office, stood behind his chair, looked at what he was reading. Another trial, another long shot, another desperate hope. "Come with me," she said. "Where? You'll see. Trust me." He followed her to the elevator up to the roof. The rooftop garden was Damien's one concession to impracticality: trees and flowers and grass 47 stories above the street. At night, with the city spreading below and the stars almost visible above it, felt like being suspended between earth and sky. Elena led him to the bench in the center, sat down, patted the space beside her. "What are we doing?" Damien asked, sitting. "Nothing. We're doing absolutely nothing." "I don't understand." "I know. That's the problem." Elena looked at him. "When's the last time you just sat, no laptop, no phone, no research, no planning, just sitting and breathing and being present?" I can't just sit." "Yes, you can. Watch." She took his hand, not romantically, not as part of their arrangement, just took it and held it, their fingers intertwined, and stared out at the city. Damien was tense beside her, every muscle coiled, but slowly, so slowly, she felt him start to release. His breathing deepened. His shoulders dropped. His grip on her hand relaxed from desperate to simply present. Minutes passed, maybe 10, maybe 30. Time stopped meaning anything. "This is what my father taught me," Elena said quietly, "after my mother died. He said grief is loud, but healing is quiet. You have to make space for the quiet, or the loud will drown you." "I don't know how to be quiet." "I'll teach you." They sat there as the city breathed around them. No words, no promises, just two people learning to exist in the same space, holding on to each other like anchors. When they finally went back inside, something between them had shifted, deepened, something that felt dangerously like real. The discovery came on a Tuesday afternoon. Elena was looking for a charger in Damien's office. He'd given her permission to borrow his workspace when he wasn't there, and knocked over a stack of folders, papers scattered across the floor. As she gathered them, one document caught her eye. A hospital bill. Mount Sinai Medical Center. Dated 4 years ago. Patient James Hartwell. She froze. The bill showed the original amount, $183,000, and then in careful notation, payment after payment. Small amounts at first, then larger. Anonymous donor codes, tracking numbers, and at the bottom in Damien's handwriting, monitor monthly. Ensure family is not overwhelmed. Anonymous protocol critical, do not reveal source under any circumstances. There was more. Emails, correspondence with the billing department, proof of payment, a 3-year paper trail documenting exactly how he'd saved her from drowning in debt. But it was the note paperclipped to the file that broke her. Elena Hartwell, artist. Father terminal. Debt will destroy her. Cannot let that happen. Art must survive. Below that in fresher ink, just 3 words for the paintings. Elena sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by evidence of a kindness so profound it felt like grace, and cried. She was still there when Damien came home 2 hours later. "Elena!" He saw the papers, saw her face. Understanding dawned. Oh God. "You kept records," she said. "All of it, every payment, every month." "I had to, for accounting purposes." He crouched beside her. "I'm sorry, I know you didn't want to know." "I'm not angry. You're crying. Because no one has ever, her mouth was rugged, in my entire life, no one has ever done something like this for me. No strings, no expectation, just pure, uncomplicated kindness." "It wasn't uncomplicated," Damien said quietly. I told you I needed you to keep creating. Selfishness, not kindness. It's not selfish to want beauty to survive in the world. Isn't it? They looked at each other, really looked past the arrangement and the performance and the walls they had built. Damien, Elena whispered, what are we doing? I don't know, and this was supposed to be simple business, 6 months and done. I know. But it's not simple anymore, is it? He reached up, cupped her face in both hands. His thumbs wiped away her tears with a gentleness that hurt. No, he said, it's not simple at all. They stayed there on the office floor, surrounded by evidence of beginnings neither of them had planned for, and let the truth settle between them. The arrangement had always been a lie, but what was growing between them that was undeniably terrifyingly real? 1 week later, everything changed. Elena was in the hospital with Lily, while Damien handled a board meeting. They'd been watching old episodes of a baking show, critiquing the contestants' techniques, when Lily suddenly grabbed her hand. Elena, she said, I need to tell you something. What is it? Should I call the nurse? No, not that. Lily took a breath. I know. Know what about you and Damien? That it's not real. That this whole engagement is fake. Elena's heart stopped. Lily, please don't lie to me. I'm dying. I don't have time for lies. The bluntness of it, the matter-of-fact acknowledgement of her own mortality left Elena speechless. How long have you known? She finally managed. Since the beginning, since the first time you visited together. You're both terrible actors. Lily smiled, but her eyes were serious. The way you looked at each other like you were surprised to be in the same room. Like you hadn't figured out your own story yet. It was obvious. Why didn't you say anything? Because Lily's grip tightened. Because I've watched my brother kill himself slowly for 2 years. Working himself to death, refusing to live, to feel, to do anything but try to save me. And then you showed up. And suddenly he was present, actually here, smiling real smiles, coming to visit me because he wanted to, not because he felt obligated. Tears were streaming down Lily's face. So I didn't care if it was fake. I didn't care if it was an arrangement or a scheme or whatever. I just cared that he had someone, that he had you. Lily. But here's the thing, Elena, I don't think it's fake anymore. Maybe it started that way, but the way he looks at you now, the way you touch his hand without thinking, the way you both lean toward each other like magnets. She laughed weakly. That's not acting. That's real. Elena couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. So I'm asking you, Lily said. I'm begging you, don't leave. When this is over, when the 6 months are up, when you don't have to pretend anymore, please don't leave. He needs you. He's going to need you so much when I'm gone. You're not. I am. We both know it. Lily's voice was gentle but firm. The doctors are talking about weeks now, not months. Maybe a few good days if we're lucky. I'm out of time, Elena, but Damien isn't, and I need to know he won't be alone. I promise, Elena heard herself say. I promise I won't leave him. Even when it's hard, even then. Even when he pushes you away because he will, even then. Lily smiled, radiant and heartbreaking. Good, that's good. She closed her eyes. Thank you for loving my brother, even if you don't realize that's what you're doing yet. Elena stayed with her until she fell asleep, then walked out of the hospital in a daze. The city was too bright, too loud, too real. Her phone buzzed when. Text from Damien, meeting ran late. Sorry, home in an hour, she typed back. Take your time, I'll be here. And then, because Lily had been right about everything, we need to talk. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Okay, see you soon. Elena stood on the sidewalk watching traffic stream past and realized she was terrified. Not of the conversation they needed to have, but of what would happen when they finally admitted the truth out loud. Damien came home to find Elena standing at the window silhouetted against the city lights. She didn't turn when he entered her and didn't speak, just stood there impossibly still, and he knew with absolute certainty that everything was about to change. Elena, he said quietly, Lily knows. The words hung in the air between them. Damien set down his briefcase, moved slowly into the room, keeping distance between them, because suddenly the distance felt necessary. Knows what? Everything. That we're not really engaged, that this is an arrangement. She's known from the beginning. Elena finally turned to face him. Her eyes were red. She said we're terrible actors. Despite everything, Damien almost smiled. She's not wrong. She also said, Elena's voice caught, she said it doesn't matter anymore because somewhere between the performance and the pretending we stopped acting. That what we have now is real. Damien's heart was pounding. Elena, is it, she asked, real because I need to know Damien. I need to know if I'm the only one who's completely lost the plot here. If I'm the only one who lies awake at night thinking about you, who reaches for you without thinking, who's forgotten how to tell the difference between what we're supposed to feel and what I actually feel. He stared at her, at this woman who'd crashed into his life 3 weeks ago and dismantled every wall he'd built. You're not, he said roughly. You're not the only one, P. Then what are we doing? What is this? I don't know. I don't. He ran both hands through his hair. I didn't plan this, any of this. I was supposed to hire someone to play a role, solve a problem, get through 6 months and move on with my life. But then you showed up and you were real. You didn't perform, you just existed, and it was the most honest thing I'd encountered in years. And then you told me about Marcus, about your father, and instead of using that leverage or keeping it secret, you were honest. Even when it could have cost you everything. He was moving toward her now, unable to stop himself. And then you met Lily and you looked at her like she mattered, not like a charity case or an obligation, but like an actual person. And you sat with me at 3 in the morning, teaching me how to breathe. And you found those files in my office. And instead of being angry that I'd interfered in your life, you cried because someone had been kind to you. He was standing in front of her now, close enough to touch. So no, Elena, this isn't fake anymore. I don't know when it stopped at being fake. Maybe it never was. Maybe from the moment I kissed you at that gala, some part of me knew this was going to destroy me. Destroy you. Because when this is over, when Lily is gone, and the trust is transferred and you've fulfilled your contract, you're going to leave. You're going to take your money and your freedom and build the life you deserve. And I'm going to have to watch you go, knowing I let myself fall in love with someone who was never really mine. Silence. Absolute silence. Elena was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. You love me, she said finally. Not a question, a statement of fact that needed confirmation. Yes. Since when? I don't know. Maybe since I saw your paintings 3 years ago. Maybe since you looked at me in that hospital and promised to take care of my sister. Maybe since the first time you held my hand without me asking. Does it matter? Yes, Elena whispered. It matters because I love you too. The world stopped. I love you, Damien. I love how you love your sister. I love your terrible coffee habits and your secret sketching and the way you pretend to be hard when you're the softest person I've ever met. I love that you saved me 3 years ago and never asked for credit. I love, her voice broke. I love everything about you and it terrifies me. Why because everyone I love leaves or dies or disappears and I can't lose you too. Damien pulled her into his arms. She came without resistance, burying her face in his chest, and he felt her shake with silent sobs. You're not going to lose me, he murmured into her hair. I'm not going anywhere. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. Then we'll figure it out together. No contracts, no arrangements, just us learning how to do this. She pulled back enough to look at him. What about the trust, the board? All the reasons we started this, I don't care. Damien, I don't care, he repeated. If the board wants to take the foundation, let them. If I lose the trust, I'll survive. But I can't. I won't build our future on a lie. Not anymore. Elena touched his face, traced the line of his jaw with her fingertips. Lily made me promise not to leave you. Even after the 6 months. Even when it gets hard. Did you promise? Yes. Because I wasn't planning to leave anyway. He kissed her then, not for cameras or appearances or desperate escape. Just kissed her because she was there and she was his and he'd wasted too much time already. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, then deeper, certain. A promise and a question and an answer all at once. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Elena said, So what now? Now we tell the truth to everyone, starting with the board meeting on Monday. They'll destroy you. Maybe, but at least I'll go down honest. Elena smiled, actually smiled radiant and real. Okay, we'll do it together. Together, he agreed. They stood there in each other's arms, watching the city breathe below them, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Damien felt something like peace. But peace, Elena was learning, was a fragile thing. Saturday morning, she woke to find Damien already gone, a note on the kitchen counter explaining he'd gone to the office to prepare for Monday's board meeting. She made coffee, opened her laptop to check emails, and found her world tilting sideways. Someone had leaked documents to the press, copies of the contract, the payment schedule, email chains discussing their arrangement. Every private detail of their agreement was now public, dissected by gossip sites and business journals alike. Fake engagement scandal, leaks. Cross Foundation, Billionaire 6-month romance. A business transaction, Elena Hartwell. Gold digger or victim, Elena's hand is shook as she scrolled through article after article. They'd published her bank statements, Damien's payment records, messages between his lawyer and accountant discussing maintaining the fiction. Her phone rang. Damien. Don't read it, he said immediately. Whatever you're reading, stop. Too late. Elena, I'm so sorry. I don't know how this happened. My security. It was Marcus, Elena said quietly. It had to be. He's the only one with access to everything. Silence on the other end. Then, I need to make some calls. Stay in the penthouse. Don't talk to anyone. I'll handle this. Damien, trust me, please. Just trust me. He hung up before she could respond. Elena sat in the vast silent penthouse watching her life implode in real time on social media. Her phone was exploding with calls and messages. Her followers had doubled overnight, people who wanted to mock her, defend her profit from her sudden infamy. But it was the message from Mrs. Chen that broke her. Elena, dear, I saw the news. Whatever happened, whatever they're saying, I hope you know you're still welcome here. Your studio will be waiting when you need it. Sometimes home is the only place that doesn't judge. Elena cried. Then she wiped her face, stood up, and made a decision. She wasn't going to hide. Marcus Reed's office was exactly as Elena remembered, cold, expensive, designed to intimidate. She walked in without an appointment, past the receptionist's weak protests, and found Marcus at his desk, looking unsurprised to see her. Miss Hartwell, he said mildly, to what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? You leaked the documents. Did I, ma? Don't play games. I know it was you. Marcus leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers. And what exactly do you think you know? I know you've been trying to destroy this from the beginning. I know you have a personal vendetta against me because of my father. I know. She stopped, took a breath. I know you're scared. That got his attention. Scared. Of losing your hold on Damien, of becoming irrelevant. You've been his lawyer for 15 years, his advisor, probably the closest thing to family he had after his parents died. And then I showed up, and suddenly he doesn't need you anymore. Suddenly there's someone else in his corner. Marcus's expression hardened. You think this is about jealousy. I think this is about control, and you just lost it. Did I? Marcus opened a folder on his desk. Because from where I'm sitting, I've exposed a fraudulent engagement designed to manipulate a trust fund. I've done my due diligence as an attorney protecting the interests of the Cross Foundation and its board. If anything, I'm a hero. You're a bully and a thief. Elena stepped closer. 15 years ago, you conned my father out of his life savings. You made him believe in an investment that never existed. And when he tried to fight back, you buried him in legal documents and false trails until he couldn't afford to keep pursuing it. That's quite an accusation. It's the truth, and Damien is going to find out, if he hasn't already. Marcus smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Oh, he already knows. I told him myself this morning. And do you know what he said? Elena's heart stopped. He said he'd looked into it years ago, that he'd found evidence suggesting I might have been involved in some questionable deals. But he never pursued it because, and I quote, Marcus was there when I had no one else. He helped me build this company. Whatever mistakes he made in the past, I owed him loyalty. The words hit like physical blows. So you see, Miss Hartwell, even if everything you're saying is true, even if I destroyed your father, Damien isn't going to turn on me. I'm too valuable, too necessary. I'm family. Elena stared at him, at this man who'd taken so much and felt entitled to even more. You're wrong, she said quietly. Family doesn't manipulate. Family doesn't leak private documents to destroy someone's reputation. Family doesn't sabotage the people they claim to care about. And yet here we are. Here we are, Elena agreed. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Damien is better than you. He's better than both of us, probably. And when he has to choose between protecting you and doing what's right, he's going to choose right every single time. Such faith, Marcus said. I hope for your sake it's justified. Elena left without responding, but as she stepped into the elevator, her phone buzzed. Text from Damien. Where are you? Please tell me you didn't do anything reckless. She typed back. Define reckless. 3 dots, then Elena. I went to see Marcus. I'm fine. Coming home now. We need to talk. Important. I have something to show you. Elena leaned against the elevator wall, exhausted. The doors opened onto the ground floor, and she walked out into a wall of cameras. Paparazzi, dozens of them, calling her name, shouting questions, blocking her path. Elena, did you know about the contract from the beginning? Are you really in love with Damien Cross, or was it all for money? Did you seduce him to get access to his fortune? She pushed through them, head down, refusing to engage. Someone grabbed her arm, a reporter trying to get her to stop. She jerked away, stumbled, nearly fell. And then Damien was there. He appeared like a force of nature, positioning himself between Elena and the cameras, his arm around her waist, his expression murderous. Back off, ma'am, he said. Not loud, not aggressive, but with absolute authority. All of you, now. The cameras kept flashing, but the crowd parted. Damien guided Elena through them into a waiting car away from the chaos. Inside, she was shaking. He pulled her against him, and she let herself collapse into his strength. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have gone to see Marcus alone. What did he say? That you knew about my father, about what Marcus did, that you looked into it but never pursued it because you owed him loyalty. Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then, he's half right. I did look into it, and I did find evidence, but I didn't pursue it because I was building a case. A real one, airtight. Something that couldn't be dismissed or buried. Elena pulled back to look at him. What? 3 years ago, when I paid off your father's debt, I also hired a private investigator. Not to investigate you, to investigate the scam that destroyed your family. It took time. A lot of time. But 6 months ago, we finally had enough evidence to prove Marcus had forged documents, embezzled client funds, and covered his tracks with shell companies. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was waiting for the right moment, because I wanted to be sure, and because he pulled out his phone, opened a folder, handed it to her. I wanted to give you this. Elena looked at the screen. Legal documents, affidavits, bank records, proof of everything Marcus had done presented in meticulous detail. I was going to turn this over to the district attorney on Monday, Damien said, after the board meeting, after we came clean about our arrangement. I wanted Marcus there believing he'd won before I destroyed him. Damien. But that was before he leaked our contract, before he tried to hurt you. So I'm giving you a choice, Elena. This is your father's justice. You can decide what happens next. Press charges, settle, walk away. Whatever you choose, I'll support it. Elena looked at the evidence in her hands. Years of pain and anger distilled into legal language. The power to finally make Marcus Reed pay for what he'd done. But all she felt was tired. I want him to apologize, she said quietly, publicly. I want him to admit what he did to my father. And then I want to be done with him. I don't want revenge. I just want acknowledgement. Damien nodded. Then that's what we'll get. And the contract leak, the scandal. Let me handle it. Trust me. Always. He kissed her forehead. Good, because I need you to be brave one more time. Tomorrow, at the hospital. Lily's doctor called. She wants to see us both. Elena's stomach dropped. Is it? I don't know, but we should go. Together. Together, Elena agreed. The car drove them through the city past the cameras and the headlines and the people who thought they knew their story. But the truth Elena was learning was something only they could write. Dr. Patel was waiting in the consultation room, her expression carefully neutral, in that way doctors learned when delivering bad news. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said. "Please sit." Damien and Elena sat, hands clasped. Lily wasn't here, she was resting, the doctor explained. This conversation was for them. "I'm not going to waste time with medical jargon," Dr. Patel said. "Lily's cancer has progressed significantly. The current treatment isn't working, and her body is too weak for more aggressive protocols. We're talking about days now, maybe a week if we're very, very lucky." Damien made a sound small, broken. Elena's grip on his hand tightened. "We can keep her comfortable," Dr. Patel continued gently. "Pain management, supportive care. She can stay here, or we can arrange for hospice at home if she prefers. But I wanted you to have time to prepare, to say goodbye properly." "How is she?" Damien asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "Tired, but peaceful. She's known for a while that this was coming. She's ready, Mr. Cross. The question is whether you are." "No," Damien said. "No, I'm not ready. I'll never be ready." "I know, but she needs you to try." They went to Lily's room in silence. She was awake, propped up on pillows, looking impossibly small in the hospital bed. But when she saw them, she smiled. "There you are," she said. "I was wondering when you'd get here." "Lily," Damien's voice broke. "Come here, big brother." She patted the bed. "Both of you." They sat on either side of her. Damien took one hand, Elena the other. "So," Lily said, "Dr. Patel told you, yes." "Good. I hate surprises, and dying should really come with advance notice." She laughed weakly at her own joke. "Too dark." "Never," Elena said, even as tears streamed down her face. Lily looked between them. "You told each other, didn't you, that you're in love?" "Yes," Damien said. "Finally. Took you long enough." She squeezed their hands. "Listen, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to say this fast. Damien, you need to stop trying to save me. You can't. But you can live for me. You can take all that love you've been hoarding and give it to Elena. You can be happy. That's how you saved me, by not wasting a single moment of the life I don't get to have." Lily and Elena. Lily turned to her. "Thank you for loving him even when it was complicated. For staying even when it was fake. For being the person who taught him how to breathe again. Promise me you'll keep doing that." "I promise." "One more thing." Lily's eyes were bright with tears and determination. "I want to see you get married. For real. Not the fake engagement, not the contract. I want to be there when you two actually make this official." "Lily, we can't," Damien started. "Yes, you can. Hospital chapel. Tomorrow, just us and a minister. Nothing fancy, just real." She looked at him. "Please, Damien, let me see you happy before I go. Let me know you won't be alone." Damien looked at Elena. She saw the question in his eyes, saw the fear and hope and desperate love. "Yes," Elena said. "Yes, let's do it. Tomorrow. Tomorrow." Lily's smile was radiant. "Perfect. That's perfect." She yawned, exhaustion pulling at her. "I'm going to sleep now, but tomorrow I get to watch my brother get married. And that's everything." She drifted off, still holding both their hands. Damien looked at Elena across Lily's sleeping form. "You don't have to do this. Not like this. You deserve a real proposal, a real wedding, not—" "This is real," Elena interrupted. "This is the most real thing I've ever done. Unless you don't want to." "Want to," Damien laughed, the sound choked. "Elena, I've wanted to marry you since the moment you told me about Marcus, instead of using it against me. Since you taught me how to sit still. Since you looked at my sister like she mattered. I want to marry you tomorrow and every day after for the rest of our lives. Then we'll do it. We'll give Lily her wedding and ourselves." They sat there as the sun set outside the hospital windows, holding Lily between them, and planned a wedding that would be witnessed by one person and mean everything. The hospital chapel was small, simple, wooden pews and stained glass windows that caught the morning light. Lily was there in a wheelchair, dressed in soft pink, a flower crown that Elena had made from the hospital gift shop perched on her head. She looked ethereal, like she was already halfway to somewhere else. The minister was a chaplain who worked at the hospital, a kind-faced woman who'd seen too much death and still believed in love. Damien wore a suit. Elena wore a simple white dress that she bought that morning and from a boutique on Madison Avenue. No veil, no train, just her and Damien and Lily and the truth. "We're gathered here today," the chaplain began, "to witness the union of Damien and Elena. There were no guests to give them away, no cameras to capture the moment, just the three of them and the weight of what they were choosing. The vows were traditional, simple. Elena spoke hers with tears streaming down her face, promising to love and honor and stay even when it was hard. Damien's voice broke twice, but he got through them, promising to cherish and protect and never take a single day for granted. They exchanged rings, simple gold bands that Damien had somehow procured overnight. When the chaplain said, "You may kiss," Damien pulled Elena close and kissed her like she was air, and he'd been drowning. From her wheelchair, Lily clapped weakly. "Finally," she said, "my brother is married to an actual human woman who actually loves him. Miracles do happen." They laughed, all three of them, even as they cried, after they went back to Lily's room. She was exhausted from the short trip, but glowing. "That was perfect," she said. "Absolutely perfect." "It was," Elena agreed. She was sitting on the bed holding Lily's hand. Damien stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. A unit, a family. "Damien," Lily said, "I need you to do something for me. Anything. Live, really live. Not just exist, not just work yourself to death, but live. Travel, paint, make mistakes, be messy and human and happy. Promise me." "I promise. And Elena, take care of him. He's hopeless without someone to remind him to eat and sleep and occasionally step away from his laptop." "I will," Lily smiled. "Good, then I can go." "Lily," Damien's voice was desperate. "It's okay. I'm tired, Damien. So tired. And you're going to be okay. You both are. You're going to build something beautiful, and I'm going to watch from wherever I end up, probably causing trouble and judging your decor choices." She was fading. They could see it, the light in her eyes dimming like a candle in wind. "I love you," Damien said. "I love you so much, Lily. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you too. Both of you." Her eyes closed. "Stay with me until—" "We're not going anywhere," Elena said. They stayed, for hours, for days. Time stopped meaning anything in that hospital room. Nurses came and went. Dr. Patel checked vitals and adjusted medications. Damien and Elena took turns sleeping in the chair beside Lily's bed, never leaving her alone. On the third day, as the sun was setting, Lily opened her eyes one last time. "Damien," she whispered, "I'm here." "Elena." "Right here, my hand," Lily smiled. "Good, that's good. Don't be sad. I gotta see you happy. I gotta see my brother fall in love. She took a shallow breath. "That's everything." And then gently, like someone finally giving into sleep, after a long day, Lily Cross let go. The funeral was 3 days later. Small, private, just the people who'd actually known Lily, not the society parasites who wanted to be seen mourning. The chapel was filled with flowers, Lily's favorites bright and alive and defiant. Damien gave the eulogy. He stood at the podium and talked about his sister, about her laugh, her stubbornness, the way she'd made him a better person just by existing. He talked about how she'd taught him to love to live, to see beauty in the midst of pain. And he talked about Elena, about how Lily had known before either of them that what they had was real, how she'd given them her blessing and her hope and her final wish. Lily believed in love. Damien said, his voice steady even as tears tracked down his face. Not the easy kind, not the fairy tale kind, but the kind that shows up at 3 in the morning, the kind that holds your hand through impossible choices, the kind that says, "I'm here even when here is the hardest place to be." He looked at Elena sitting in the front pew. "She gave me that. She gave us that. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life honoring her gift by actually living, by being brave enough to love completely, by remembering that every single day is a chance to choose joy." After the service, people approached them with condolences. Marcus Reed was not among them. He'd been arrested the day before the evidence Damien had compiled finally turned over to authorities. His firm was being investigated. His life was imploding. Elena felt nothing about it, no satisfaction, no vindication, just exhaustion. That night back at the penthouse, Elena and Damien sat in Lily's room. They'd converted one of the guest suites for her for when she got better, for when she came home. It had never happened. Now it was a museum of a life cut short. Degrees on the wall, photos everywhere, books she'd loved, the environmental science research she'd been so passionate about. "I can't believe she's gone," Damien said quietly. "I know. I keep expecting her to text me, or call, or show up and tell me this was all some elaborate prank. She'd like that, the drama of it." Damien smiled despite himself. "She would." They sat in silence. Then Elena said, "I found something in your office. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for paper and I found—" She pulled out a sketchbook. "This." Damien's expression shifted. "You weren't supposed to see that." "I know, but I did." She opened it. Page after page of drawings. And every single one was her. Elena at the gallery 3 years ago. Elena at the gala. Elena painting. Elena sleeping. Elena laughing. Hundreds of sketches spanning 3 years, each one more detailed than the last. "You've been drawing me," she whispered. "I told you, I saw your paintings, and I couldn't stop thinking about you. About the person who could create that much beauty from that much pain. So I tried to capture what I saw, to understand it." "Damien, I know it's probably creepy, obsessive, but I didn't know how else to process what I was feeling. You were this impossible thing, this person I'd helped anonymously, who I'd never met, but who I couldn't forget. And then suddenly, you were real and in my life, and I was supposed to pretend it was all business." He laughed bitterly. "I never stood a chance." Elena looked at the drawings, at the care in every line, at 3 years of secret devotion captured in graphite and paper. "I love you," she said. "I love you so much it terrifies me." "I love you too. What do we do now without Lily? Without the contract? Without any of the reasons this started?" "We live," Damien said simply. "We honor her by actually living." "How? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Together." 6 months later, the scholarship fund was announced on what would have been Lily's 25th birthday. The Lily Cross Environmental Science Scholarship, full funding for students from low-income backgrounds pursuing environmental research. Funded by the proceeds from the Cross Foundation Trust, which Damien had received full control of and promptly reorganized. Elena stood beside him at the press conference, wearing her wedding ring and a genuine smile. They'd kept their marriage quiet, no public announcement, no photos sold to magazines. Just a simple acknowledgement when asked, yes, they were married. Yes, they were happy. No, they didn't owe anyone explanations. Marcus Reed had been sentenced to 4 years for fraud and embezzlement. Elena had testified at his trial, had looked him in the eye and told her father's story. She'd been strong and clear and unshakable. And when the guilty verdict came down, she'd felt nothing but relief, not vindication, just closure. The penthouse had been transformed. Elena's studio took up the entire sunroom, now north-facing windows and canvases in various stages of completion. She'd started painting again. Really painting. Not commissions or portraits for money, but art that came from someplace true. And on her easel, finally finished after 3 years, was her mother's portrait. The mouth was complete now. Smiling. At peace. Beside it, a new painting, Lily, radiant in her flower crown from the wedding eyes, bright with hope and mischief and love. It was the last thing she'd painted before the funeral, and it was the best thing she'd ever created. "Elena," Damien called from the kitchen, "dinner's ready." She wiped her hands on her paint-stained jeans and walked to where her husband, her actual, real, legally bound husband, was setting the table. He'd learned to cook properly, actually learned taking classes and reading books and practicing until he could make something besides burnt toast. "Carbonara," she asked, recognizing the smell. "Your father's recipe. I wanted to get it right." Elena's throat tightened. "You are impossibly perfect. You know that." "I'm really not, but I'm trying." They ate at the kitchen island, talking about their day, making plans for the weekend, existing in the comfortable mundanity of married life. After dinner, they took coffee to the roof garden, their place, the spot where everything had started to shift from fake to real. "I've been thinking," Damien said, "about selling the company." Elena looked at him in surprise. "What? Why?" Because I built it to save Lily, to have enough money and power to give her a chance. But she's gone and the money doesn't mean anything anymore. What means something is time, presence, actually living instead of just working. What would you do? I don't know, travel maybe, paint, find something that matters for its own sake, not because it generates revenue or solves a problem. He took her hand. I want to learn how to live, Elena. You promised to teach me. I'm ready for the lesson. She smiled. Okay. First lesson, sometimes doing nothing is doing everything. I don't understand. Watch. She leaned back against him, his arms coming around her, and they sat there in the garden, 47 stories above the city, and did absolutely nothing. No phones, no plans, no performance, just breathing and being and existing in the same space. Minutes passed. 10, 20. The city hummed below them. Stars struggled to show themselves through the light pollution. The world continued turning, and Damien felt something inside him finally relax. This, he murmured into Elena's hair, this is everything. Yes, she agreed. Yes, it is. 1 year after Lily's death, they returned to the hospital, not to the oncology ward, to the chapel, where they'd gotten married in front of one person and meant every word. The chaplain was there, smiling in recognition. You came back. We did, Damien said. We wanted to do this again, properly, with people who matter, and we wanted to do it here, where Lily was with us. She's still with you, the chaplain said gently, in everything you do. I know. This time there were guests, not many, just the people they actually cared about. Dr. Patel, Elena's old teacher from art school, some of Damien's colleagues who'd become genuine friends, Mrs. Chen from Elena's building, who'd never stopped holding her studio for her even when she didn't need it anymore. Elena wore white again, a different dress, fancier this time, with actual flowers in her hair. Damien wore the same suit as before because Lily had seen him in it, and it felt right. They said different vows this time, personal ones they'd written themselves. Elena promised to keep teaching Damien how to be still, to remind him that success wasn't measured in dollars or achievements, but in moments of connection, to love him even when he was impossible, especially when he was impossible. Damien promised to see her, always, to look past the wall she built and love what he found there, to create space for her art, her grief, her joy, her everything, to never stop choosing her. When they kissed, their guests applauded. When they turned to walk back down the aisle, Elena could have sworn she heard Lily's laugh, bright and mischievous and eternal. That night back at the penthouse, Elena found Damien in his office. He was holding a small velvet box. What's that? She asked. Something I should have given you a year ago, the day after we got married the first time. He opened it. Inside was a ring, not the simple gold band she wore now, but an engagement ring. Delicate, beautiful, with a small stone that caught the light. It's not a diamond, he said. It's an aquamarine. March's birthstone. The month your father died. The month Lily died. The month we actually started choosing each other instead of being chosen by circumstance. Elena's vision blurred with tears. I know we're already married. I know this is backwards, but I wanted you to have this. Something that's just ours. Not part of a contract or an arrangement or anyone else's expectations. Just us. She held out her hand. He slipped the ring on beside her wedding band. Perfect fit. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. Always have, always will. They stood together in his office, their office, because nothing was separate anymore, and looked out at the city that had witnessed their beginning. Do you think she knows? Elena asked. Lily, do you think she can see how it all worked out? I think she orchestrated the whole thing from the beginning, Damien said. I think she knew before we did. And I think she's up there right now, completely insufferably proud of herself. Elena laughed. Absolutely. And she'd tell us to stop being so dramatic and go eat cake. There's cake. I may have ordered your favorite, just in case we were feeling celebratory. You're perfect. I'm really not, but I'm yours. Yes, Elena said, taking his hand and pulling him toward the kitchen, toward cake and coffee and the ordinary magic of their life together. Yes, you are. Outside, the city glittered. Inside, two people who'd started as strangers become conspirators and ended as soulmates sat at their kitchen counter, eating cake and making plans and living. Really living. Just like they'd promised. Just like Lily had taught them. Just like love demanded.